And hello, fellow gamers. I'm back once again. This time I'm playing Tetris on the Philips CDI. This is not an unlicensed thing. This is an official thing. It is officially licensed by L.org, the holders of the Tetris license. But it's very low-key, low frills in appearance. Obviously, they're showing off the full motion video that the CDI is capable of, but the video that they're actually showing isn't that impressive. But still cool that they used it. So startup screen here. This looks very much like the NES, where you pick the level here, which is the speed that the blocks will come down, and then the height, which is the number of lines of crap that it'll fill it with to start with. But otherwise, other than recognizing some of the options here, I've never played this particular version of Tetris, and so that's why this is a Jeremy Tries. Like I said, I'm playing this on a real Philips CDI. It is a Model 220 specifically, with a real Philips gamepad, which looks remarkably like a Gravis gamepad. The Philips CDI is widely known for its bizarre controllers, and in fact I've got another one right here. This was commonly bundled with the unit, and it's just horrid. When they finally got around to decide to make like actual usable controllers, they copied an existing design, which is a good design, so this is actually quite usable. Anyway, let's start up the game. I was testing this earlier to make sure it worked and make sure I had the audio levels right. And it's basically you get a Tetris playfield like this, which is not very wide. And it's got some video stuff going on in the background. Controls seem to not be very responsive, which is not a good thing. There is only, even though the CDI gamepad has 4 buttons on it, the CDI only supports 2 buttons, piss, on a controller. And so, for this version of Tetris, there is only 1 button to flick the pieces, so you don't get to flick them clockwise or counterclockwise like you do in most Tetris games. The other button drops the piece straight down. And pushing down actually doesn't do anything in this. I'm holding it down right now and it's not going. There's absolutely no sound effects to speak of, apparently. Which is a shame, because that's something that really adds to the Tetris experience. Probably, I'm guessing, because they're using the entire audio subsystem to run this music right now, which is actually quite nice music. This is something I could chill out to. In fact, this might be music that I figure out a way to rip and put onto my phone so I can listen to it while I'm at work. And I do like the graphics in general. Graphics in Tetris have never been particularly important because the core of what you need to see what's going on is very simple. So you don't need a lot of graphical horsepower to convey that to the player. But it has, like you see the background going on, and it's got animation going in it, which is, they didn't have to do that to make it Tetris. That's just a nice extra visual pretty thing, so I can appreciate that. Oh, son of a tit! That was a good bonehead ass move. One thing I will say is that the display for the next piece is all the way at the bottom, and I don't think that's a good place for it. I think Nintendo got it right by putting it up near the top of the screen, because then you're looking to you're already looking at the top of the screen to position the piece generally. And so you'd already be planning out your next move, whereas this, it takes a little adjustment. Apparently we transitioned levels right there, but it didn't dump any of the junk. It just changed the background, changed the music. Like I said before, they're very, very thin playfield on this particular version of Tetris. It's very tall but very thin, and that makes it easy to fill it up with crap horizontally very easy. How do I enter my name? Oh, you're kidding me. I gotta go through this? This slow-ass thing? Actually, I guess it's not that bad. So, I'm gonna... I actually do like how it kind of goes chunk, chunk, chunk for each letter just a little bit. Because if you release between letters, then you see that it kind of just slides on to the next one. So it's not a bad design. I'm gonna be PUD. Press an action button. I'm gonna give this another shot. Maybe I'll be able to play better if I'm not blabbing some. Well, maybe I was wrong about this level thing right here. Because in the original Tetris, or the Nintendo Tetris, the one everybody sees as the original, changing the level does change the speed of the pieces when you start, but it also does start you on a level that's further ahead. There's a level display on it, and the blocks get a different color palette, so I want to see more of level 1. So it changed the music to level 1. So nice. So this acts as a preview for the music too, so that would make it pretty easy to record this off, especially since there's no sound effects. That's nice. I apologize if my voice sounds kind of hoarse. Right now I got kind of a weird throat thing going on. I don't know if I already said that or not. Got the buttons mixed up right there. The controls are getting better as I play. I'm thinking that when I said before that the controls were kind of sluggish, that it actually may just be that this gamepad itself, the D-pad in it, might be dirty. I just need to crack it open and clean it. Which you can do. I said this, I think, in one of my, maybe the first Super Metroid video that I did, where before I played that game, I knew that the buttons in my Super NES controller were not very responsive, and so just before I started recording Super Metroid, I cracked that controller open and cleaned in it. So I described in that video how you clean a controller like this. It's actually pretty easy. You can get everything you need to do it from your local Walmart, pharmacy, Walgreens, whatever, for just a couple of bucks. Starting to get the hang of this. The speed of the pieces moving horizontally is kind of weird, in that it moves slowly for the first tick, but you hold it down just a little bit longer, and the piece goes flying across the screen. So if I'd been working on this game, I would have made it so that the key repeat delay was a little longer than that. I don't know what to do with that. Oh, piss. Fucking it all up. See, voice, hoarseness. It's not good. Newer versions of Tetris have a little shadow that goes directly underneath the piece as it's coming down, and the shadow hits the tops of the blocks that the piece would land on if you were to drop the piece right where it is. And that's very helpful for lining up a piece before you drop it. So it'd be nice if it had this. Hey, Jormware has joined us. Welcome, Jormware. He says you just walked in. I would pause this if I could. There's not enough buttons on the controller. He says great graphics. Yes, good graphics. Good soothing soundtrack, definitely. Would watch again. In fact, I might just stop blabbing so much so that we can listen to the music. I mean, it is Tetris. There's not really much extra to say about it. I would be interested to find out who is the composer for this game, which can probably be found out on Moby Games. Moby Games is a website that is basically the IMDb of video games. And so I bet this game is listed on there, and I bet it has the full credits for this game listed on there, which includes the composer. So I might just look that up after I'm done playing. One thing to say though is whenever you clear a level, how it just kind of stops and fades out. That's a little bit jarring. I would have done something about that too, if I designed this. Hey, you can nudge it under there. You can nudge pieces in this version. You know, being a CDI game, I was fully expecting that this game was going to kind of suck. But as I have learned with other CDI games, there is such a thing as a good CDI game. They don't all suck. I think the CDI was a victim of mismanagement, and for starters, Philips was initially resistant to allow people to create what they saw as traditional video games for the CDI. Like, they didn't want a Mario game or even a side-scrolling platformer on the CDI. And that, I think, combined with the price of the hardware, which was astronomical. It was like $500 or $600 probably for this unit back when it was new. Kept most people away from it. And then when Philips finally relaxed their requirements and allowed traditional video games like this to be on their system, and they came up with good controllers, by that time, people had long since given up on the CDI. It never really got a chance to shine, and that's unfortunate because it is a pretty powerful system. I think it was also a victim of, it was one of those systems in the early 90s that was ahead of its time in that it was trying to be the universal set-top box. It was trying to do too much in one box, and when you try to do too much with one thing, then that thing ends up not being very good at any of one of its capabilities, and it ends up being very expensive. So the CDI was a victim of being over-engineered, initially terrible controllers, and a very poor selection of what people at the time were recognizing as video games. I actually had a dream once that somebody had ported Doom 2 to the CDI, and it ran fantastically. It was amazing. Like, Doom 2 on the CDI was running it smoother than PCs were at the time, at least in my dream. So if there's any crazy awesome hackers watching this right now, try porting Doom to the CDI, see if you can get it to run. Doesn't have to run well. I think it would just be interesting to see if it could be done. I'm sure it could be, because Doom is very portable. It'd just be a question of how well would it run. Would it be playable if it were actually successfully ported, or would it run at like 1 frame per second? with these old systems and running Doom, it really comes down to the skill of the programmer more than anything else to getting them to run well. The 3DO version of Doom actually doesn't run all that well at all, and it runs in a permanently shrunken screen size on top of that. And I think that's entirely because that version was rushed, and even though the 3DO is a very powerful machine, I think if more time had been spent on it, it could have run much better. Whereas the PlayStation version of Doom, which got a lot more development time, runs phenomenally well, and they even added some features in it like colored lighting and a completely new soundtrack. Of course, the soundtrack on the 3DO version of Doom is remixes of the original music, and very good remixes, as a matter of fact. But the PlayStation version got a completely brand new ambient soundtrack. So, yeah, generally, games that get more time and effort put into them end up being better. It's just a question of how long is the management going to let you work on it. Of course, there's some games that contradict that, like Duke Nukem Forever, which is really a shame. I mean, that was a game that was definitely a victim of its horrendously long development cycle. They kept changing engines, they kept adding features, and it was developmental turmoil, basically. And as we know, it was eventually released, but damn, did it have flaws, at least from what I hear. Didn't actually get around to playing it myself. I suppose I could now that it's cheap and that the hubbub has died down around it. Jormweir says, Half-Life 3 confirmed. Is it really confirmed, or are you just fucking around? I'm guessing you're just fucking around, but yeah, Half-Life 2 specifically, another game with a horrendously long development cycle, but one that actually turned out good from what I understand. Another game with a really long development cycle was called Prey, and it was in development for like 8 or 10 years, I think. It was another one of those games that started way back in the late 90s, around about the same time that Duke Nukem Forever did. And it's another one of those games that kept changing engines. So I got to level 8 there. I'm going to try level 9. So we can see presumably the last level in the game, the last background, and the last song. And if I can manage to beat this, we'll find out what happens if you do. If it just wraps back around to level 0 or what. Okay, the pieces are going really fast. I had time to adjust to this before. Shit. It's a nice beach back in the background, though. Ah, son of a penis. Oh, Christ. Oh, son of... Ah! Damn. That was over fast. As easily demonstrates to you, what I've always called Tetris is the build your own mess game. And that's exactly what that was. Jormer says that's what she said. I'm not sure what part you're referring to specifically, but yes, I'm sure she did. And the CDI actually has a battery-backed memory in it for storing stuff from games, which includes high scores, so I bet these will get saved by CDI. We'll have Butt and Pud and Dick, and maybe I'll eventually sell this CDI to someone eventually, and they'll get a CDI that has all those horrible names in it, so that'll be fun. So I think we've seen all of CDI for the Tetris, so I'm gonna call that a stream. Thanks for watching, and if you want to be notified the next time that I'm live streaming, there's two ways that you can be notified. You can either follow me on YouTube or in the YouTube gaming app with notifications turned on, or you can follow me on Twitter, because before a stream I always send out a tweet that says I'm doing the stream in 5 minutes. So yeah, this was actually a surprisingly good variant of Tetris. Good graphics, good music. Overall, much better than I anticipated, and yeah, quite nice, especially for a CDI game. So, see you sometime, whenever that happens to be.